This video is sponsored by Silver and Blood Requiem. If you've never seen a great romance in shonen anime, congrats! You're most people. Look, the sad truth is that shonen romances are typically terrible. The bar is in hell and my expectations are even lower. You can call me a pessimist, but I prefer the term experienced. As after a lifetime of bad couples, worse writing, and sequels that make shotguns look tasty, I have reasons to be skeptical. So when I heard that a new popular anime was gonna be built around whether or not two teens would end up together, I shuddered, I cringed, and I went back to bed as I'm not gonna put myself through that again. Until I do, because I'm a masochist and holy shit, Dandadan is so frickin' good. He believes in aliens, she believes in ghosts, and unfortunately for everyone, they're both right. So after a horrific first experience, they have to now get the boy's testicles back. And yes, that is the actual plot. Kinda. Frankly, the only thing crazier than Dandadan's premise is its ability to make the same weebs who voted so low she's only into him for his smell show of the year and convince them that a multi-year wait for a budding romance between two awkward teens was worth it. Which is insane because when most fans think of romance in anime, it's usually to clown on it. From bad fan service to cliches 1 through infinity, but when I tell you that Dandadan is different, it's got none of that goofy nonsense in it, I need you to know I'm lying. Yeah, that's right, there's misunderstandings, drama that could be solved if they talked for 3 seconds, a love triangle with a potential second one on the way, not to mention some questionable camera angles, and a first episode that deserves its own warning. Dandadan is filled with tropes that I famously cannot stand. However, it all blends together to create a compelling story about two dorks liking each other that I end up having almost no issues with. Though yes, minus how season 1 could not have picked a worse place to end, like jeez. Dandadan thrives in chaos. You never know when you're being set up to laugh or cry, but through all the action, it somehow manages to nail one of the most wholesome romances in this genre. So with the second season coming out, I figured that this was the perfect time to examine just how Dandadan flourishes where so many others have failed. So let's get into that. I'm Sarcastic Horse. I have been waiting a long time to talk about this one, and yes, I did cave and read the manga. But we're only gonna cover what happens in season 1, which thank God, as this way I don't have to break out the flowchart. But first, let me tell you all about my sponsor so I can get this bag. Silver and Blood Requiem, the free-to-play gacha RPG that dares to ask the question, what if vampires had a moral crisis? And also a loyalty system. Telling the story of Noah, a young man with a mysterious disease who nearly catches a case of not being alive, he's saved by the sudden appearance of his new waifu, and so the collectathon begins. Explore cursed forests, haunted deserts, and emotionally repressed castles. Build a team of beautiful, broody people and call them vassals, because why not? With over 50 of them to choose from across 4 factions, each one with their own unique personality and secrets to be uncovered. And forget that though, just look at all this. The looming cathedrals, immortal vampire vassals in blood-soaked armor, black iron gates creaking in the fog. It's like Castlevania met Fate Grand Order and just said, make it darker. Gothic style, Gothic style, Gothic style. Experience the joy of actually pulling the things you want, as with a 4% chance for SSRs, that's basically charity in gacha terms. Combat? Tactical. You move your characters across tiles like you're a blood-stained chess god. Each decision is meaningful as you craft your party and make sure that all of them have the best skills and gear, as it's only together that you'll be able to discover the mysteries of the cursed blood and build that roster even further in this addictive gothic turn-based strategy game. I had an absolute blast playing Silver and Blood, not my usual cup of tea, but it nails everything that it's going for, and the music alone is more than worth it. So if you want to experience this for yourself, click the link in the description or use the QR code on the screen and download Silver and Blood Requiem today. Blood memories awaken, the path home begins. Also take part in the What He Who Does Your Blood Hold event, where players can earn in-game resources. Now I think one of the first things we gotta establish about Dandadan is that it is quite literally built different. This isn't just a romance thing, it's not even the author, Yukinobu Tatsu, used to work on Chainsaw Man, a fact which should shock 0 people. No, the thing that makes Dandadan different is that the main character is Momo Ayase.
Wow. calling him seafood is pretty lame.
Cut me some slack. My first boyfriend just broke up with me.
First introduced breaking up with the scumbag now called her ex, Momo manages to make Shrek proud by proving she has layers. A practicer of talk shit get hit, her faith, well, betrays her, as while she may be all that, her ex has an extra 40 pounds and dropkick. He said put out, she said get lost, with the only support Momo found being from the floor as her friends get in I told you so's about that dude being a loser. The morning has been rough, girl just had a breakup and a beating, yet despite it leading her to an asshole, Momo sticking to her very particular type of Ken Takakura, who is a famous celebrity that, honestly, easy to explain it, he's Japanese Clint Eastwood. That's all you really need to know for this to make sense. As it really doesn't, as no amount of reason is gonna break this child's romantic ideal, no matter how often it ends in stupid. The thing that I love about this intro is that it basically kills any and all my initial concerns when I was going into Dandadan. The main one being, Momo, was she gonna be an actual character or was she just the love interest? Been burnt by this one too many times, and while Shonen has thankfully gotten better at this over the years, if you expect less, getting a little bit more will suddenly feel like a treat. Momo, though, manages to be a home run right out the gate, as within the first minute we can see the nuances of her character. Sure, she's tough as nails, but then the first fight we see in this series about fighting ends with her losing. Her friends are giving her shit, and she is begging for sympathy as she cries comedically mourning the breakup and all the time she just wasted. In one intro, we're able to see multiple facets of who she is. She is both a scrapper who will let her pride drag her into a fight, and the high schooler who's crying about nonsense that she quite literally won't ever think about again after an hour. Momo from jump feels fully fleshed out, with the fact that she is the main character left me feeling pretty confident I would be in for a good time. As a general rule, if a shonen action series has a female lead, odds are it'll be fire. Because if solo glazing has proven anything this year, it's that the young boy age range of this show and dudes in general will swallow anything if it has enough hype and aura with a dude main character they can self-insert into. But if the series has a female lead, and not a major female character, no, if she is the main character, then it's probably gonna be quality, as lesser authors would be leaving so much easy money on the table. So if they're gonna do it, they probably have something interesting to say, and importantly have to actually figure out how to write women and how the rest of the cast connects to her, versus through her man, and oh look,
Only one reason someone like you would talk to me, and that's the reason you talk to me!
Momo is introduced picking a fight. Okarun is introduced just taking it. Momo peeks into one of the classrooms to find some nerd getting bullied by the rest of his class. He's just kinda there with everyone else taking it personally, with us being able to guess that this has been going on for a while, as A, bullies don't usually jump to loading magnets and paper balls unless they're looking to up the ante and this has gotten boring, and B, Ken aka Okarun is just taking it. He's trying to just read a book but makes no attempts to go someplace else, signaling that he probably can't as they'll just find him, leaving us with the image of a kid who's used to being bullied and was ready for it to just keep happening. Okarun had it rough. He was alone, and then cause she can't stand a bully, Momo steps in to dare those pricks to try anything else. As while she may have lost, these dudes aren't used to people fighting back and not about to risk it, and though neither of them knew at the time, this small act of kindness would change the course of their lives and the world. Because of course it does.
Momo Ayase! I think I know what you're into!
If we can give Dandadan's writing flowers for anything that isn't roof adjacent, I gotta love how perfectly it nails the socially awkward nerd. We love Okarun, but he is a massive, overthinking dork who could talk himself out of a sure thing no matter how many neon signs are screaming, just tell her stupid. With that awkwardness being put on full display from the second he finally opens his mouth, as rather than just thanking her for that save, like, oh, would you be my friend, he goes to the indirect route of yapping about his hyperfixation. Aliens.
They're not UFOs, they're UAPs!
I didn't ask, don't care.
So I don't know about you, the times may have changed, but conspiracy theorists have adopted a very bad rep these days. And Okarun is 100% that, as he believes in all things alien and cryptid because little green men and Bigfoot have been living rent-free in his head for years. Okarun is trying to special interest his way into making a friend, and it goes terribly. So we're all left to watch as he makes Tinder mistake number one of taking a woman being polite for actual interest and spamming her all about it, when really she only picked up that magazine to make it look like they were friends to scare off those punks. Ken, to his credit, probably knows this, but he doesn't know how to have a normal conversation, so he defaults to nerd-splaining aliens, even as it accomplishes the opposite effect of annoying Momo, who just did not sign up for any of this. Her act of kindness has put her on the receiving end of a barrage, and having little polite speak left, Momo hits him with the "Oh, this is why you have no friends." She flared up, he got cooked. Now you expect the kid who was just getting bullied to just take that shit, and he does, but then he gets her back.
But I believe ghosts are.
There's no such thing as ghosts.
Single funniest joke in the first episode. The way he goes from no spine, bullied, truly waiting for people to walk all over him, to laughing at someone else's niche interest is such a funny turnaround. It's so petty but so high school, as even at their lowest, a sci-fi nerd will still think they're above whatever the teen girl's into. And this one interaction sets up their biggest character flaws. You see, Momo, she's got that dog in her, and her bark will make you wish it was a bite. She has a temper and an impulsive streak leading her to saying things that she immediately regrets, though she will also double down on them long after she probably should have. Momo will get caught up in her own feelings and let those assumptions carry her places she'd much rather not go. And on the other side of things, while we don't get to hear his thoughts based on everything we'll see in the series, Okarun's self-esteem is so in the gutter, anything Momo says he's probably already thinking worse. He's worse than a pessimist, he is a borderline defeatist. He'll give up before even trying and bully himself for thinking he'd ever had a shot. He'll just go mute and let the situation play out around him. It's only a small miracle that he's able to keep this convo going, as he just ends up accidentally rage baiting her into talking to him, with Momo's initial regret of just what she said turning into a sci-fi versus fantasy debate over who's the more ridiculous one here, even though the answer is the both of them. Alright, the only two brain cells in the room have met, and well, things escalate until they make a bet that neither of them thinks they can actually win.
Saying that, but have you ever seen a ghost? Nope.
Before we get into that, we have these two's #1 shippers peek in and mistake them for an item. As while they may be fighting, from the outside looking in, they're still fighting. But there's kind of a trope in Japan about how, if you fight with someone, it's a sign that you care more about them. But this outside perspective of assuming what's going on is the story seeding into your mind like, oh yeah, this is going where you think it is. Emotionally, I had no fucking idea where the plot was going to take me, but here we go. You see, Ken and Momo split up to visit the two different occult sites, where whoever gets proven wrong has to be the other's servant for a year. Only issue, neither of them have actually seen the things that they are dying on a hill for. I mean, all they can do is really talk about like a more elusive topic, which is their feelings. Momo opens up about how she was raised by her medium and not at all suspiciously hot grandmother, how the two had a falling out where Momo was tired of being mocked for following one of her traditions, and this led to the two of them not speaking for what was apparently years, with them only recently burying that hatchet. Hence her sensitivity at people mocking ghosts, as that's one step away from people disrespecting her grandmother. She thinks that she gave that woman enough grief, so she won't let anyone else add to it. And Okarun, having heard all this, Momo having spoken her truth, decides to return the favor by giving her nothing.
I don't think that matters.
Hey, at least the kid's talking about something after being mute in school for probably years. And then the freaks show up.
I'll let you suckle my teats, boy.
So yeah, Okarun is getting attacked by a ghost, meanwhile Momo is, oh boy, fucking this show. I'm gonna be honest, I don't want to talk about any of this, but since this show keeps bringing it up, yeah, let's just do it.
Guys that stalk cute young things like you.
So there's this thing that shows will do where their first episode is gonna be like the darkest one, the most graphic. If there's a taboo subject matter that is in the series at all, it is going to be at its most explicit here at the start. And the rest of the show will never carry that same energy, and I've never fully enjoyed it. Yeah, you can have a lot of shocking content at the start, but when the tone gets reeled back that much, where we go from a hard R start to a light PG-13, it feels weird. It's like, okay, we got the people seated, and now we're never gonna do that again. At its worst, it'll feel gratuitous, like it is using those subject matters just to get people talking, to get itself more popular, and to get people watching. And at best, it's like, okay, we did the horrible thing, you're properly traumatized, and now we don't have to go there again, as the horror of that experience is now running through your mind, and it can be an undercurrent for the rest of the series. However, how effective that strategy is varies wildly, as if you fuck this up, it will just make the show feel exploitative, with one of the most notorious examples of this being Goblin Slayer, a show where basically, first episode had everyone talking, and then the rest of the series could have fit into any standard fantasy show, with the thing that set people off being the subject matter, as this is a fantasy world. And just like how all the other races have gimmicks, you know, elves like forests, dwarfs like rocks, this series asks the question of, oh, what if goblins like to abuse women? Like, what if that was just their entire deal? The underlying theme of this series is recovery and healing these emotionally scarred victims. Personally, I'm like, okay, I can kinda see it, but even though it doesn't do the same level, like, okay, we fully ditched the darkness after we did the thing, even if it is a recurring element, even if there is a storied reason for this to happen and be shown to us, how it's shown to us still is worth having a conversation about, and whether or not it earned doing what it did in the manner that it happened. With Dandadan, in my opinion, now being the latest example of this, as yeah, it kind of does it for a reason, not just for shock value. And for those of you who didn't watch the series and are just watching this video, Momo is abducted by aliens who claim to want to extract her reproductive organs for experiments, and they are all explicitly supposed to be men. And rather than honing in on some medical horror, we just, that's exactly what you think it is. It really went there, and the series never gets this dark or explicit again, making a dicey first recommendation for anyone you're trying to get into the show. And then of course season 1 ends with the insane choice of doing this basically again, which leaves me with the opinion that, okay, whoever said that it only happens in episode 1, that the series doesn't dabble in SA subject matter, they were lying to us. As having read the manga, it is alluded to on a number of occasions, both in characters' backstories and in material that was cut from the manga, as that wasn't necessary for the scene. But when it comes to Momo herself, there's like 2 other ones. They are not nearly as bad as the bathhouse, but it's still edging dicey. If this is not something you fuck with, fully understandable. Personally, while not perfect, I do think I can tolerate what Dandadan is going for, as when it comes to its use of SA, this is actually a major theme that the series wants to explore, as Dandadan is all about people who are stripped of their autonomy. It is about people who are victims and overcoming that. We see this explicitly in some ways, like Silky's origin story, or a little bit more vague but still clearly there with Jiji's whole upcoming situation. And it does this also even in this episode, as we open with a guy who just wants to use Momo for her body, just like the aliens, which sets us up to feel empathy for the victim, and also set up Ken to set himself apart, as to him, it's always going to be his love of who she is, not what he could use her for. Dandadan doesn't open like this just for shock value, but how it handles it and how it's depicted across the series, we can still have a conversation about that, as it is very much worth having a conversation over. But to summarize what I've been avoiding showing footage of, Momo is abducted, Ken, possessed by the Turbo Granny, appears through the phone, blurring the line between, oh, he's doing this through heroic willpower and the spirit is really just here because she really hates people who abuse young women, even though she is one of them and immediately tries to eat Momo, which, to the 10,000 word essays people have written about Turbo Granny, that one fact always feels like it needs to be somewhere in bold. However, it's here when he's lost all control over himself that Ken finally gives us his backstory, that he felt so alone when he was younger that he thought the only people who would want to be his friends is aliens, only for them to never show up, so he assumed that nobody wants to fuck with him. Feeling doubly rejected, we now fully understand why he was trying so hard to befriend Momo. Ken had nothing before he met her. He had no friends, no connections, only a longing to be seen by someone who wasn't a bully. She saved him, and he is willing to do anything for her because of it.
Do anything for her! I turn into a monster for her!
This moment is actually one of my favorites in this episode, as it makes it look like, okay, Ken, he's gonna do it. He's gonna be the hero, he's gonna save the— oh no, he just immediately got put back in the dirt. With us instead then having seen Momo pull from her grandmother's lessons to access her secret powers that she of course has. It's a shonen, giving her the strength to defeat the last of the aliens and temporarily freeing Okarun from the control of the Turbo Granny, who still has his dick. So they kind of have to get that back, and most importantly to this video, we watch Momo realize she caught feelings.
I'm Ken Takakura.
It's only here that she learns Okarun's name, and that it's the same one as her crush, Ken Takakura. bringing home the full irony of her statement earlier in the episode where she was lamenting how she can't find a strong silent type who would say I'm an awkward guy, only to stumble right into one. He might seem like a stringy nerd, but he's actually exactly what she's been looking for. And big elephant in the room aside, one episode was all it took to get me to start shipping these two dorks together, as they are adorable. He asked for no pickles incarnate, with the show's writing giving us a nice sense of the mess that would just end up carrying them through a lot of hijinks. She's quick on the draw, but deeply cares about others. He can't talk for shit and he overthinks all of his problems, but he'll put his life on the line proving his feelings through action. It's just a great setup that is really easy to love, with the progression for the show making it even easier to get sucked into their slow burn. Which is another one of my biggest praises for the show, as I have will they won't they PTSD.
Who the heck is
If you show me a cartoon where it looks like they're gonna tease a couple getting together forever, I am going to check out. While nostalgic because I'm used to subsisting on scraps, I mentally, I know the drill, and most of the time it's just annoying. Yet Dandadan doesn't have any of these problems. It makes the process of Momo and Ken getting together actually engaging versus a box we're waiting to be checked. But the question remains, how? What did Dandadan do differently versus so many other popular shonen manga? Well, in honor of not dragging things out, I'm just gonna tell you, as the answer is incredibly stupid. The difference is that Dandadan actually wants to write a love story.
I'm in love with you. I'll stay with you no matter what.
Look, anime has a bit of a kink when it comes to epilogues where we see the heroes all grown up. Maybe it's propaganda to combat low Japanese birth rates. Maybe it's just, well, it's the final fantasy for a series aimed at children. But often we'll see these teen heroes grown up, who everyone ended up with, and meeting their frequently god-awful kids. This is just how a lot of these popular shonen end, with a lot of them handling the romance in very similar ways, where they just don't care about them all that much. Which, fair, some of these series go on so long and have a ridiculous amount of characters. Finding time to tell a love story between like 20 different training arcs and 500 chapters of homoerotic rivalries, that would just be too much to ask. So what we frequently get instead is just bursts of relevance followed by long droughts where they don't matter. Hinata, best girl, but she is one of the worst examples of this, as she is irrelevant for 98% of the story. She is really good when she's there, but it is insane that when it's time, like, okay, these two characters end up together, it's cute, everyone sees it coming, but then it's like, oh, we never actually see them talk about how they feel. We don't see how they got together. There's so many like emotional things that go unaddressed, and the series just went, oh, fuck it, we'll just do a filler movie that explains everything. That is how much material that was left on the table, and it's fine because that is not what Naruto was trying to be about. It's about love, yes, but not that kind of love. And to its credit, it did give us the single funniest moment in anime history.
I said, I love you.
Several days later.
Yes! Oh, let me taste your tears, Scott. Your tears are so yummy.
Typically for the main hero, who they end up with doesn't actually matter. It doesn't play a huge role in the story. In fact, the only person it really matters to is the love interest, with it being a crapshoot for how relevant they'll be by the final arc. Some characters are like, okay, yeah, this is part of the squad. She is always going to be here. And then, well, you remember this is Bleach and Orihime is a non-factor like a sad majority of the cast. This irrelevance, though, is the fate of any side character whose main role in the story is built around being in love, which is how Dandadan manages to skate by in a field where so many others have floundered. Dandadan actually wants to tell a love story. I really wouldn't put it in the romance genre, but for a shonen battle manga, Dandadan chooses to set a love story at the core of its narrative, as it helps to further its main idea of embracing life and rejecting despair. Momo is the main character, and that's not copium. That is the author's words. She is not at risk of being sidelined anytime soon. The impact she has on the rest of the cast is a constant part of the story. Even if Ken is the one who gets the transformation where he turns into Tokyo Ghoul, they are still equally relevant to all the events of the story, and most importantly the fights, which as the main vehicle for storytelling in this genre, is everything. And this also means that their bonds and their growth will never feel like a side quest. In fact, it ends up becoming the focus, as most shonen are about becoming stronger, about growing, about training. It may not be glorified to the same extent in every story, but it's the main thing that these stories tend to highlight as signs of progression. Deku learns how to master 100%, and even beyond that, Ichigo Ichigo harnesses the power of, well, his entire bloodline to become the super hybrid. Dandadan, by contrast, doesn't have the same level of hyperfocus on getting stronger. It happens, people train, but the characters never really save the day or beat the bad guy by figuring out how to just punch something harder, leaving the series to focus more on teamwork and creative problem solving. So in the absence of them becoming more powerful, the thing that grows, strengthens, and we come to care about is them getting together. And it's adorable.
What?
Forced to hang out on account of Turbo cursing the boy, Momo's using her new psychic powers to prevent her friend from becoming, well, the Turbo Cougar. They can't really have privacy at this point, with the show milking this for all the yucks possible. The two bicker about how they got into this mess, only to then hit us with actual sincerity. As Okarun blames himself for how everything ended up this way, that if he had stayed in his corner instead of trying to befriend her, the bet wouldn't have happened, and neither of them would have been abducted. Yeah, he's really on that Eeyore grind even when he's not a ghost. Isolating himself right after Momo just told him how his real issue is not the whole E.T. thing. It's how he pushes people away and assumes what others are thinking. And in a cute moment of visual storytelling, we watch her cross the divide to be with him, showing that they do live in the same world instead of separate ones like he's trying to convince himself of. It's basic, but these are the little moments that really endear them to us. Then he ruins it.
Bitch.
Again, the writing for this series really nailed the immature teenager vibe, as these little shits are allergic to being too sincere for too long. Though this does touch on their main flaws yet again. Momo is, well, blunt is saying it politely, and lacking tact, leading her to accidentally read Okarun for filth, calling him out for his defeatist and self-isolating tendencies, then gets caught up in a fight before she even needs to take a second breath. She's great, but her mouth is running faster than her brain is. Meanwhile, Okarun has so little self-esteem that when they're attacked by a sumo alien, just go with it, it's all you can do. Even the tried and true cliche of, oh, the hero is gonna sacrifice himself, and that is like treated as heroic, it reads instead as him being overeager to throw his life away, that he thinks so little of himself and the impact he has on others that he would surrender to the Turbo Granny if it just meant saving Momo, all the while being blind to the sorrow that this would cause her, as he really struggles just envisioning his presence bringing her joy. This carries over another idea of the series, that choosing to live and beating the odds is idealized and lauded far more than when characters try to sacrifice themselves or compromise their morals. Okarun as a pessimist is inspired by Momo's gung-ho attitude, with his defeatist tendencies being ones that he has to unlearn throughout the early parts of the series. This is typified by his slow realization of how he has feelings for Momo. Momo very quickly realizes she caught feelings and proceeds to choke them back out of fear of dying from embarrassment. Okarun takes multiple episodes to even realize his feelings are romantic. He is so starved for connection that his fear of losing what little he has and his inability to imagine those feelings would be returned leads him to try to bury his love for her while simultaneously trying to microdose her approval. Like when he's trying to work out in secret so him being ripped would be a surprise to her and he could bask in that. Personally, I am traumatized by a lot of bad will they won't they love stories, but the core of my issues with the worst offenders of my childhood is that, to put it simply, I can tell when I'm being dicked around. It truly feels like the story could have it happen at any point, but is choosing not to. Usually this is for engagement purposes, as why give the people what they want when you can torture them for 400 chapters and some change? And at the heart of this issue is the fact that writing romance is a balancing act. You of course need to make it clear that these two people are gonna grow closer, that they're gonna end up together, but you also need to do it in a way that doesn't frustrate the people who are wondering why it just won't happen already. With Dandadan managing to nail a balance thanks to three things. The first being they are legitimately cute together, so we have a reason to actually root for them and enjoy when they're around. Not to mention there isn't a better option just laying around that the story is going to ignore for mid. Second, by virtue of the series focusing so heavily on the flaws of the characters, we come to understand why the characters won't just ask each other out. Okarun and Momo's flaws are glaring. We see how they started from their backstories, with them learning to overcome them being huge parts of their overall character arcs. So a little patience is warranted. Then thirdly, the story has other shit going on. Dandadan is a battle manga, and no amount of romance is gonna change that one simple fact. Between all the moments of growth are insane fights, near-death experiences, and some of the most heartbreaking backstories you will ever see. This is all good shit, leaving us entertained with just enough progress that it comes off like a slow burn rather than us being denied closure. And having read the manga, yeah, it's gonna take a hot second, but keep an eye out for pigs and umbrellas. It's a marathon instead of a sprint, but the path there is always entertaining, and this series avoids some of the worst pitfalls that we have all grown so tired of. Before I ruin my lips by bringing up her name, Momo and Okarun did survive the sumo alien. Gilf on Gilf violence ensued, with Momo's granny being a bit of a dick, making Momo believe that Okarun died, with him thinking he killed her. So naturally Momo slams the door, as after seeing his face, she realized how much she cares, and that is embarrassing to her, with Granny razzing her daughter for having a new crush, though given how much she hated all the previous boyfriends, she probably sees him as an improvement. But then in a moment of like, oh yeah, actions have consequences, especially when you're dealing with an overthinker, Okarun took the moment that, oh, she slammed the door in my face, I must have done something wrong, instead of thinking, oh, she has something of her own going on, and when he learns kind of the truth, he gets tilted.
Then why'd you go and slam the door in my face before?
Again, just the right amount of bickering, these two. Sweet moment, funny fight. Like, okay, these silly kids. It doesn't feel like we're being deprived of an emotional moment by having these two act the way that they did, so it's never that annoying. And after they have all the talks, they turn around and fight the evil old lady, where despite everything, having learned exactly why Granny was with these spirits, Momo does feel empathy for her in the end, that she was consoling the spirits of young girls who were victims, much like how Momo nearly was. Turbo may have been a foul-tempered murderer, but there was more to her than just being evil. Unlike the aliens who, when they're evil, do tend to be just assholes. I mean that and examples of exploitative systems in contrast to the spirits who are typically victims of exploitation.
We knew one thing about her. She always showed up near the spirits of murdered girls, but we didn't know why.
Day is saved, they are getting that good grub, and Okarun takes a moment to be depressed, assuming that now that the crisis is over, Momo might not want to be his friend anymore, and he's obviously wrong.
See you tomorrow!
Like, they just really spent a minute overanalyzing how they said goodbye. Fuck man, I don't know, it's just so cute. It makes it clear, yeah, they are idiots, as even the friends can see it, though to be fair,
You guys were kissing!
Episode 5 is basically them being annoyingly endearing. Having finally stopped nearly dying enough to go to school again, the two of them spend all class daydreaming about talking to one another, only for their attempts to find the other to lead them to, well, miss each other for the entire break. They are officially obsessed, though the lack of phones is contributing to all this. Having been unable to find one another, they assume the worst, that the other is avoiding them, and they just start to dwelling on how they possibly fucked this up. Cue a head-on collision that leads them to accidentally kiss in front of Momo's friends.
I'm totally making out with some guy in the courtyard! Who is he? What class is he in?
Who are adorable, and they support this so much without being like terrible and trying to actually force it. After this, we crash headfirst into their first lover's quarrel as they be miscommunicating, with their personal flaws of runs mouth and gives up colliding. Okarun is ballless, lost everything beforehand, but now he only has the shaft, and he only just now realized it, and he wants to tell Momo about this fact, but ends up running into her in front of her friends, who are embarrassing her as everyone takes this as couple shit, and it kind of is. Now, Momo may not be a child anymore, but her habit of acting up and saying the wrong thing when she's embarrassed is still very much present. She lashes out, taking what was clearly a lie to create cover for them, and saying it was serious to drive him away, and she immediately regrets that, as it harshes everyone's vibe, and most importantly hurts her friend, who she tries to go to apologize to but finds him instead in the arms of a hussy.
It's fun having dorks like him drool over me. That was probably the best combo he ever had with Cute Girl.
Don't worry, we're about to go all in on Ira's delusional ass, but first, the not couple makes up. Momo apologizes for what she said, having gone from vehemently denying the allegations to playing into them to prove Ira wrong, who just flirted with Okarun to give herself an ego boost, as she thought he was such a loser that the idea of her would make his life. So naturally, Momo gives that bitch a concussion.
They deserve washtubs falling on them instead of guys falling for them.
Okay, that's episode 5, what did we learn from all this? You know, besides how watching this show is gonna put us at risk for diabetes. Well, a lot actually. See, Dandadan does use a lot of the same tropes that anime fans have grown so tired of over the years. From love triangles to misunderstandings, all these methods of creating drama. However, when you actually experience it, it's never that bad, as they're being used well. All the things I mentioned are tropes. They're not objectively terrible on their own, it is how they are used. Yes, this couple has a number of instances where their immaturity leads them to argue, fight, and assume the worst. But while these are problems, they are ones that the characters get to learn and grow past. Momo, after seeing how things went, learns to dial back and to not go for the throat when she's under pressure. When Okarun finally realizes that Momo is cute, when a bully points it out, he dilly-dallies on calling the thing a thing, but then he starts trying to do things to impress her. Though he actually ends up achieving this mostly by accident, like when he nearly beat a kid up for bad-mouthing her. If Momo jumps to conclusions about what Okarun and Ira were doing, it's not just there to head off romantic growth, it's there to point out their inability to listen and communicate with one another. When these two don't talk, they lose, and it's only through teamwork can they achieve victory. The writing for Dandadan may do certain tropes that people, myself included, despise, but it doesn't use them lazily. There is always a point, and it's not done repetitively. And even when it does do the same joke twice, it's usually really funny.
It's the guy's responsibility to seal the deal.
Seal the deal? What kind of magazine were you reading?
The one I found in my dad's den.
You should not be reading that magazine!
Technically, there is a love triangle here in Dandadan, not counting the one Okarun makes up in his head, with the real one involving Ira, post-assuming Momo was Satan, now believes that she and Okarun are star-crossed lovers, with it being her fate to save him from this cruel woman who has ensnared him in her wicked machinations of world domination. And if you can't tell by this 100% accurate summary, yes, this girl is delusional.
This golden ball! I'm being told to go forth and save this world from all evil.
An issue that a lot of love triangles run into is that most of them aren't actually triangles. Really what happens is that two people are in love, but can't say it, with there being a third person who just can't take the hint. So when the story wastes time trying to pretend that these two things are equally valid choices, we as an audience can see what's happening, as we're not stupid. I hope. There are moments where I genuinely worry for some of y'all, but to put it simply, Ira ultimately serves to be a parody of this love triangle dynamic. From the moment we meet the real her, it's clear that this woman is not to be taken seriously, with her delusions of grandeur eclipsing any actual hurt she can have on this relationship. Okarun isn't interested, she's a pest that got him in trouble one time, and after that, her obsession is just reduced to a personal gag that gets her in trouble more than anyone else. The comedy is not, oh, we're laughing at her trying to get Okarun. We're laughing at her being this detached from reality. She's not coming up with schemes, she's in the back being smarmy or kicking ass on account of gaining ghost powers. But another neat touch, this pseudo-fake love triangle does do something that actually makes it more interesting than real ones, as we have to reckon with the fact that Ira may have a crush on Okarun, but the person she's obsessed with is Momo.
She's building an unholy army to prepare for the coming of Ragnarok!
I highly doubt that.
A lot of love triangles don't really know what to do with the two suitors. So, usually, they hate each other. That's it. They're waiting for the main character to make their choice, or they're like, oh, we're cool, we're fine. She'll decide what she wants. And that's usually all we get. Ira instead has convinced herself that Momo is her op, and that she is the hero destined to stop her, crafting an expansive narrative about their rivalry, with Okarun really just being an accessory to all of this. On the whole, Ira and Momo end up having more moments together than Ira and her supposed crush ever do. When Ira officially joins the group, it's after she tanked her own reputation to reveal that, yeah, she was the one who was starting all those bad rumors about Momo, becoming frenemies, and it is hilarious. As it annoys the hell out of Momo that Ira is able to call Okarun by his last name, Takakura, implying a closeness that Momo struggles with on account of
Nice form, Ken Takakura!
It's all very unserious, with the friendship beneath the joke being what we're really here for. As they're friends, she's fun, and they're not delaying an obvious couple. And I was shocked that after doing this so well once, they somehow managed to pull it off again.
Hey, rocket engine valve.
Hey, Momo.
If Ira was Momo's chance to imagine a love triangle, Jiji is Okarun's. A childhood friend of Momo's and the one who initially bullied her, which he apologizes for, Jiji at first glance is everything Okarun isn't. He's tall, handsome, sociable, the complete high school package, till he opens his mouth and you realize
You hear that? She called me annoying!
So he's an idiot.
For how much of an overthinker Okarun is, I kinda have to give him a pass on this one, as Granny here was trying to start some shit.
He used to be Momo's best friend, back when they were kids. Her first crush, too.
If you know how I feel, why would you say that?
But immediately when you think, oh, we're in trouble, we just dodge a bullet, they can't get away with this again.
It's that easy.
They do, as Jiji is a great character and he is used remarkably well to influence Okarun's story. And seeing Okarun react to Jiji, that we realize, yeah, these two, this couple, they have the same reaction when they think their crush has a crush, and that is to start distancing.
And what are those cuffs? Some S&M thing?
I can explain everything, just listen!
I don't want to hear any of your excuses.
Momo actively pushed Okarun away, not letting him explain just the compromised position she found him in, which was Ira's fault. But you can kind of forgive some of this, as Okarun was lying for smaller, dumber reasons. But Okarun seeing Jiji and assuming that this is what peak performance looks like, on top of how Momo allegedly used to have a crush on him when they were kids, and they're also living together for extraneous reasons, all this sends Okarun into a tizzy, as he believes he's not good enough. He's realized that he likes Momo, but seeing her with this old crush has him inventing an L for himself to take. That their connection must be so much deeper. Look at how much hotter he is. Look at how he knows things about her that I don't, and just has him set himself up to fail. That he doesn't believe that he can be around the two, seeing how close they are, when really the only thing driving him away is himself. And that is the issue that he needs to overcome, as he is giving up way too easily, as love is worth fighting for. Before this, Okarun has to be pushed to say goodbye to Momo by Momo.
It's see you tomorrow! Duh! Tonight's your turn to say it!
Oh.
He assumed defeat without realizing that there isn't a battle to be had. And all this happens again because bro is a pessimist. He is a defeatist. And you really see that when he goes ghost. As the mechanics for like what really happens to their personalities isn't fully explored, the consistent thread seems to be that certain parts of their personality are enhanced to parody levels. Ira's self-delusion goes through the roof, taking on a more refined and archaic way of speaking, touching on her self-centeredness and believing that, oh yeah, I am on a noble quest from God. Okarun, meanwhile, turns into a bummed out dude who'd rather go to bed. This is his inner pessimist being brought to the forefront, as he's really always like this. He's easily overwhelmed and assumes the worst, but the paradox here is that when he goes ghost, it allows his inner bummer to the forefront, but it also exercises his actual worries. When he's in this state, he is way more casual and way less hung up on being polite, so he tends to actually speak his mind more. The fact that it's mainly in this state that he can call Momo by her first name rather than Miss Ayase speaks to how he really thinks of her. As in another Japanese cultural thing that often gets lost in translation, it's actually considered very normal to only refer to other people by their last names. When you refer to someone by their first name, you are implying closeness, that you are really good friends. Momo calls Okarun that because, well, she can't handle the real thing. But Ken calls Momo Miss Ayase as he is sticking to a rigid politeness that implies that they aren't as close as they actually are. As he is very formal and very fearful. He doesn't want to lose this relationship, he doesn't want to lose his first friend, and he starts trying to distance himself at the first sign of trouble. As while he may love her, he doesn't want to be seen as a problem, so he'll just walk away. And this is despite all the guts he's already shown up until this point. He was desperate and fought to make sure that Momo didn't misunderstand him. She is the center of his world, and he will fight, but those are usually in dangerous situations. When it's something that he can stew over and think about, that is when he manufactures misunderstandings like, well, Jiji.
She's my childhood friend. I win.
But then, after all his worry, all his fear, he takes some advice from a mannequin.
But thanks to you, I see colors I never imagined!
Yeah, Jiji and this assumed love triangle is just set up for Okarun to get his act together, to be inspired by the love story of these two haunted anatomy dolls that are willing to fight for their love, and all that's changed because of it. Okarun realizes he needs to stop accepting defeat. He admits to himself that he is in love with her, and he can't run away from that. He really recognizes that he has a flaw of pushing people away, and comes to realize that Jiji was never a threat to begin with, as he's really just a bro.
You're friends with Momo, right? Don't that make me a friend too? Don't it?
These two becoming friends is great, as Jiji is so likable that it honestly hurts. As if you're looking for reasons to not like the guy, he is not giving any. Though I do worry for him, as he might have brain damage from lack of sleep, but despite that, he is a wonderful addition to the cast, especially with what's about to happen. And I think this is something that Dandadan does super well overall. We are about to get the most autistic friend group you have ever seen, and they're all wonderful. There's not a dud in sight, and that's kind of how it handles its romance too, as everything that seems like it's gonna be annoying turns out to just be endearing, where beneath all the theatrics, all the life and death situations, we are just watching Okarun and Momo grow closer together and moving in a positive direction. We are never in doubt that the story won't have them end up together, inviting the faith that this will be more than worth our time.
All that matters to me is that you understand.
Dandadan, at its core, could be considered a love story. It was a choice to focus the series on these two idiots falling in love, to put a love story at the forefront of a battle manga, and I think that was the perfect choice. As Dandadan is really good, and at its core, it is about healing and the bonds we form along the way. Every time an arc is completed, they usually cap things off with everyone joining for a group dinner, with each dinner growing more and more till we have massive parties filled with friends and allies. A celebration of the bonds they forged and a testament to how life is meant to be treasured. A final victory over the hurt and despair that is embodied by so many of the show's villains. And at the core of all these parties and all these changed lives is Okarun and Momo. They are proof of how caring for one another can change your life for the better. If Momo didn't meet Ken, she may have just kept drifting away from her friends and her grandmother. She wouldn't have met all these people and had all these adventures. And if Ken didn't meet Momo, there's a high chance that he may have just become another ghost filled with longing and regret. Every adventure, every arc, every relationship in this story is stressing the importance of not retreating inwards, to embrace love and being loved, to reject despair, as that is what it means to live. Dandadan, I love it. I love these two, and I am so excited for all of you to experience the moments that are coming up. I will probably make a sequel video to this, just giving all my thoughts on all the moments, but I figured I might as well keep it anime only for the moment. Also remember to check out my sponsor, Silver and Blood Requiem.